Hey everyone, welcome to this Powered by Iron Health podcast. I am Dr. Joe from Iron Health, coming from our Stanford location. Our vision is to create a community that raises the standard of health and wellness. If you got any value from these podcasts, just give us a like, follow, comment. We're trying to see if you enjoy these. We want to make grow. We spend a lot of time on these shows, so we want to get some feedback. Any feedback's good, even the haters. Go ahead. You can hate us. It's fun. We have fun. So today we're going to talk about leadership. We're going to talk a little bit about clinical leadership and regular leadership. And honestly, over the years, so I've run Iron Health now, or owned Iron Health for, 7 years. And the longer I do this, the more I realize how important leadership is. So we're going to start with that. Like, being a leader is a lot. It's a burden, but it's also an amazing reward. So what is leadership to me? I'm going to start there. Leadership base level is that you are not afraid to get into the weeds and do what you have to do. Right? The concept of being a leader who just says commands and doesn't do it is not beneficial to anybody. You have to make sure you show up and say, hey, I'm going to do this with you. We're going to learn this together. I don't have all the answers. And just show up consistently day after day. It's kind of like that meme where they have the guy in the chariot with a whip, and it's like boss versus leader. The leader's up front leading the charge. It's very true. It's very true. You have to be boots on the ground. There was a point with me in Iron Health where we had 3 clinics, and I was kind of removing myself from it. And I've realized over the years, by removing myself, I've actually deprived my people of being able to lead them because I was too far disconnected from it. So you have to be there. You have to show up as a leader if you want to be a leader. And it's honestly the biggest responsibility you're going to have to be a leader, because so many people rely on you. You have to coach people up consistently. You have to lead by example and show certain ways to do things and then execute on it. And then hopefully the right people will follow you in that path. A couple of things I learned in general about leadership is it's not always the glory. Like, it's not always fun being a leader because you have to hold people accountable. I had a conversation with one of my staff members the other day, and I said, in the seat that you're in, the sucky part is you have to hold people accountable. And by you not holding people accountable, you're actually depriving them of being better. You're actually doing injustice to people if you don't hold them accountable, because now you're robbing them of the potential that they can get to. So as a leader, your job is to make sure you're holding people accountable consistently and all the time. It's a hard part because sometimes you have to tell people like, hey, what's going on? Why is it not getting done? What's happening? How can I help you? How can I help facilitate this type of evolvement and development? It's the hardest part about leadership because a lot of people think being a leader means being a cheerleader. And I've had stories like this in the past on my team as well, where it's a lot of rah-rah, like getting people up. It's very important as a leader, whatever you are in your world, to make sure you're telling people they're doing great and showing the highlights of those situations. That is not everything as a leader. As a leader, you have to be willing to tell people what they're doing wrong as well and show them the way. Because not everything's sunshine and rainbows, as they say. And it's okay to have learning experiences and learning paths and be stuck in the mud and the muck. That's how you learn, you know? For me, being where I am in the position I am now, I still learn every day. I don't have all the answers. And you have to make sure your team knows that too. It's okay to fail. It's okay to learn. It's okay to make mistakes. We're actually reading a book in Iron Health's book club called Turn the Ship Around. And one component they talk about is creating a system of leader versus leader-follower. What does that mean? That means that everyone that you're involved with on your team is leading something because they're making decisions. They're doing things what they have to do. And their accountability and responsibility is to their task and what they need to get done. It's not just doing what the leader says. It's not a leader follower. It's like, leader. We're consistently pushing and evolving past those boundaries. Those type of environments, if you have one of those, it's fantastic. If you don't, and you're just listening to someone else, you're abdicating your responsibility. So look for those leader environments. Now, I could do a long time on leadership. I think it's the most important thing in anyone who has a company. Even if you're a company of one, you have to lead yourself. So it's very crucial that leadership is the top priority in what you do. The more I do this, it's leadership and systems are two things in business that you need to consistently evolve and execute on. The second aspect we'll talk about is clinical leadership. And what do we mean by that? So Iron Health is primarily physical therapy. We started with that. We also offer other services, recovery and training and all these other great services. But PT is our bulk of our business. That's how we started, and that's kind of something we focus on. So clinical leadership. What does that mean? You have to be able to always be learning as a clinician, right? There's one thing that I'm starting to do and my team does. So we go and shadow orthopedics, right? Like how does this orthopedic think about an injury? How can my mind start to think like theirs when I see clients? You're consistently evolving. You have to always be looking at continuing education to sharpening your tools, right? And learning everything. That's like how you develop as a clinician. Now, clinical leadership, there's a couple things in that compartment that you really need to work on. The biggest one that is probably not talked about as much as it should be is how you manage your clients. As a clinician, we're so accustomed to just dealing with our clients on a certain way. But the truth is you are actually leading your clients on a journey. And that's where it starts. That's the bottom of the pyramid. How do you speak to your clients? How do you lead them from a fearful, painful state to something that's empowering and it's going to get them to where they want to go? The skills you need to acquire there are really how to talk to people, how to be a better people person. What's happening in our profession, and not all the time, but it's happening a lot, and it's good, is the profession as a whole is evolving. We're getting very cerebral. We're looking at studies and making sure we're doing the best up-to-date tasks and up-to-date procedures. That is great, but you do not want to get too far away from the connection element of what it takes to actually help make behavioral changes and someone feel a certain way, because that's everything. Like if you went to a doctor or a trainer or someone you haven't trusted or you didn't like you actually think you're going to get results and get better? No, it's not going to happen. So the first part of really being a leader as a clinician is understanding when you're leading your clients every day. You're stepping into a role of leadership because you have education and you're giving it to someone and you're teaching them how to get from where they are to where they want to be. Super crucial. Now, the next level is really evolving as a clinician. You have to make sure your ego, you leave it at the door. So if you have any idea of where you want to be as a clinician, because of X, Y, and Z, just leave that at the door. For you to evolve, you have to make sure you have an open mind, right? There's a lot of schools of thought, a lot of procedures out there that are very dogmatic. And I will say, even for me, I remember when I first started to be a PT, there was a couple of courses that I was like, oh, this is the answer. This is gonna fix everything. If I just learned this one task or one way to treat, it's gonna help someone. That's such a fallacy. You have to make sure you're learning all the skills necessary to evolve as a clinician and then bring back something to your client that is going to make them better, because one thing can work for one person and not work for another. So understand that you can't have an ego in this profession. You need to wipe it clean and just keep learning and keep evolving. Another thing we do at Iron Health and I think is crucial is really taking on students. Clinical leadership is about learning how to teach people to do what you do. I know for me, when I was in PT school was okay, but I did most of my learning in clinical rotations from great clinical educators who were able to sit me down, help coach me through specific guidelines, specific ways to treat, specific ways to think, because the way you think is more important than the way you treat. Treating will come, the hands will evolve, your flow will evolve based on you getting hands on bodies. So it's really the way you think. So you want to go through that continuum, right? And I kind of structured it in a way that is where you start and where you want to go. So you want to make sure that with clinical leadership, you are believing what you do, right? You're always learning, leave your ego at the door, and then give back. Now teach someone else, and this is how you'll evolve. So those are some basic tenements of being a better clinical leader, base level there. Now, what I've seen in my career and as well in a lot of people's careers, as you evolve as a clinician in a specific practice, if you want to grow, you have to start to learn how to develop in the business side of things. Director, assistant director, regional director. You start to take a step into the business side. I talk to my directors or potential directors, and I specifically say, once you start to step into this role, your clinician hat is worn, but you have to have times where you take that off and you put your business hat on. It's a very different way of thinking. It's a very different way of philosophy. And if you want to excel in that path, it's very challenging because you're learning from 7 years of learning how to be a PT and learning your skills and getting your craft down to a specific science to now learning how to manage a business, which is a totally different set of skills. It's a lot harder and it's a lot of grunt work. It can be done and it is fun, but if you want to evolve that way, now you have to talk about how am I going to manage a clinic financially? How am I going to manage a team? How am I going to manage my clinical team to make sure they get better and don't get stale with their skills? You start to look at different branches, right? So this is kind of the continuum of what you want to do. And not everyone wants that growth, but it is a big part of growth. Traditionally, the trajectory in any clinic. So if you want to go that director route, understand that there has to be a business component you have to put on, which changes the game drastically. What got you to where you are as a clinician is not going to get you to where you need to be as a clinical director or a regional director. Everything shifts. And trust me, I'm sitting in the seat where I try to manage both, being a clinician and a business owner. It's the hardest thing in the world. So just know it's going to come with a new set of skills that you have to learn. And what do you have to do? Same concept. Leave your ego at the door. Find a mentor to teach you. Consistently be learning. Learn on your off time. It's not going to happen on a 9 to 5 type hours if you want to evolve as a person and as a clinical leader. So those are my points. I went on a little bit of rant. I hope that gives you some value. If you like that, let us know. We'll share more about that and how to evolve through those process. Thanks for watching.